good evening, everybody. Hello to everyone out there, wherever you may be in the world. I am Commander Yannick, and today we are going to go back in time to Elite's predecessor, as in like the second of the Elite franchise, Elite Frontier, Elite 2. Now, I will just sync this up in just one moment, because obviously, because being a retro game, I have to put it through DOSBox and what have you, so I know Drew has done something quite similar, but I don't think with this particular version of the game he did it with Frontier First Encounters. But let's take a little walk down a memory lane, or before some of you out there were even born, I think. But yeah, this is the remember, Elite Dangerous is Elite 4 technically, so this is a very sort of early step down that road. Not the original, but the second of the series. But without any further ado, let's just continue. How's everyone doing out there? Hope you're having a good day, wherever you may be in the world. I don't know what you're doing. Hope you're having a good one. I think I'll play the intro as well with this one, just get some idea of what it's all about. It said the design team was so small that you can have all the credits for them just lined up here. I mean, this is even before Frontier Developments existed. But yeah, let's go to a last save position, wherever that was. Okay, right, here we are. Now, just for some quick background of those of you who aren't really so familiar with the older versions of Elite, like pre-Elite Dangerous. Obviously, Elite 1 was probably the most groundbreaking game of all time, aside from things like Pac-Man maybe, and Mario, I think. Or at least it's up there somewhere. Obviously, the first fully 3D game that ever existed by David Braben and Ian Bell alone. Only 2 people made that one. Obviously, David Braben is still very much with us in Frontier Developments, but the second iteration was actually a 16-bit as opposed to an 8-bit game, which the original was. And being 16-bit, it was available on machines like the Atari ST, the Amiga, which I owned in this period, as well as a PC. And obviously the standard sort of PCs of the era. This one I'm emulating today is the PC version. It does have the graphics resolution is not that different to the Amiga or the ST, but the color palette is much larger. And Atari ST could only, I think, apply about 16 simultaneous colors on the screen. Amiga was about 64. And the PCs of the era were 256 colors, which is a bit more, but I think the overall sort of PC ability to render good sprites wasn't quite as good as the Amiga, but yeah, similar sort of power levels of computation in that era. But yeah, comparable, I suppose. But as I say, this is I owned the PC version of this back in there, even though I did own an Amiga. I had friends who had the Amiga version, but this is this view out of your spacecraft as you're docked at the station. As you can see here, relative to Peter's base, which is an orbital station in the, however you pronounce it, the FAA system at the heart of the Empire, which we will get to the galactic map in a moment. But yes, this the thing is with the second Elite game, Elite Frontier, also was a very groundbreaking game in its time. It sort of took obviously the whole idea of a 3D game and pushed it much further down the line. I think it was one of the first ones to have these sort of detailed textures, not just a series of polygons. Obviously, at the moment, like the present day, it does look sort of extremely quaint and kind of backwards. But this is what the cutting edge of 1993 looked like, and I was very young at this point, so that kind of gives my age away slightly. But yeah, that's cool nonetheless. So I'd rather do something like this than that actually I have some personal involvement in. Rather than, I did play the original Elite, but after I'd played Elite 2, you see. So I sort of did it out of sequence. But then again, I wasn't really old enough. I suppose I technically was alive when the first he came out, but I wasn't gaming at that point. So yeah, that was sort of pre my sort of gaming career, if you want to call it that. But it's all fun though. But interesting enough, the usual control method I tend to use for Elite Dangerous is either joystick or gamepad, depending on which. And obviously, and there's the usual sort of plethora of various keyboard presses for different things. The control scheme is much more simple at this point. It isn't quite flight sim level, but it is in a way, but more to the mechanics of flight is much more Newtonian. Which some people didn't really like very much, but that's the way that Elites 2 and 3 tended to roll. Let's have a quick look at the various bits and pieces. Oh, by the way, the main control I'm using today is actually keyboard and mouse, as I did when I first played this. Makes sense to do what you know. Right, this is the ship I have today. This is a Tiger Trader. Sadly, these are not really a thing in Elite Dangerous, which is a shame, because it's quite a nice ship. At least I thought so anyway. But yeah, the idea is, as the name suggests, it's a trade ship. I only restarted sort of playing this recently. I've got up to a certain amount of cash, as you can see on the right hand side. For those of you familiar with Elite Dangerous and not these earlier Elites, this particular one, you recognise a lot of the core system names. I mean the core, I mean the bubble really. A lot of those have carried over, but except for the positioning is slightly different for some reason. I don't quite know, they didn't just roll one into the other, but you'll recognise a lot of the system names. Even though some of those systems do seem to be slightly different. Not all of them, but some of them definitely are. Or they've been added to in some way in Elite Dangerous. But yeah, it's more of a continuity of thought rather than a sort of 100% like for like kind of continuity. But anyway, hello to those of you just joined us. I'm Commander Yannick, and we're going down memory lane. And looking to the second game in the Elite series, Frontier Elite Dangerous. Frontier First Encounters, the predecessor to Elite Dangerous. Bar one. Right, I have a crew as well at this, which I do need to fly the ship. Oh yeah, unlike in Elite Dangerous, you do actually have to have crew members to fly the ship in these bigger ships. Small things like fighters and very small single seat ships, you don't need a crew. But in this case, I need 4 other crew members to fly, as it says at the top here. Crew needed after Commander 4, and that's their salary. I know you can hire a crew member to do additional things in Elite Dangerous, but they're just required for fighter duty and other things. But in this, you actually need them to fly the ship. If you try and take off, for example, you buy a new ship, you don't have crew members to fly it, it literally won't take off. The computer will just say no. It won't obey your commands. So that has to be the statutory number of crew members on board. If you mistreat them, I suppose they can actually leave you when you next dock into a station. Like, they don't just leave the ship in the middle of space or anything. So that's something. But yeah, cash owed to crew. Interesting. I didn't realise I owed the crew anything. That's thing is about. You must remember the major difference, apart from the fact that this is not an MMO, this is a standalone single-player title. One of the other things that comes with that, the fact that it's not all done in real time, like Elite Dangerous is. This bit at the bottom here where my cursor is, that's the speed-up time function. And in this, without it, it would be incredibly tedious. Because a standard run, let's say towards the end of your hyperspace jump, at this point they're not called FSDs, they're hyperdrives. Different kind of technology according to Eat Law. But anyway, you have, when you get to the full range of your hyperdrive, that takes about a week. So that time is actually sort of sped up automatically. But at this, for example, at the present, you can see the time is 5:57:50 seconds of the 13th of June, 3202. See, this is a century before in Elite Law. This is a century before an Elite Dangerous is set. But if I'm going to, let's say this is the wage due for the crew to midnight, I'll speed that up a bit. You see the time goes much faster. Yeah, they should. Oh, actually, that's days away. I'm not going to do that. They get paid whenever they get paid. Cool. Right, this is also my cargo inventory. Hydrogen fuel is obviously the standard fuel for your ship. There are alternative fuels for things like military drives, which is interestingly enough called military fuel. Apparently has a single sort of atom, I think, of antimatter suspended in a greater molecule and somehow sort of isolated within it. It's quite an interesting concept, but this isn't a military drive. This is a standard fusion drive that exists in other elites as well. I'm sure people in the first game are probably telling me that things are different, but things I don't know the first game as well as I know the others, so I couldn't tell you as much about it. I have played it, as I say, from time to time. Yeah, this is the basic description of it. Equipment status. Only 8 light years of jump range, but that's not very much. So even for the era, this is not particularly much. The jump drives later on the Elite Dangerous era are all much better performing. I mean, for this time, a long range drive would be 20 light years basically. Not that great by Elite Dangerous standards, but that's in this particular era considered to be a pretty long jump range. Anything above 10 of this is considered to be a good one. But yeah, interesting enough, for atmospheric worlds, you have to, where my cursor is, you have to have the atmospheric shielding, otherwise your spacecraft will disintegrate. So that's a nice touch, really. Laser cooling booster to keep your combat lasers cool. Now, this energy bomb is interesting because, actually I'll show you it later. I'll leave that till a bit later on because we're going to have some surprises. Autopilot. Now this is interesting. I think some people who played the first Elite, when you didn't really need an autopilot to fly around in the game successfully, found this version of the game frustrating or too hard because they didn't realise, some of them, that you actually need an autopilot in Elite to realistically to navigate around within the star system. You can do it without, but it's such hard work I would not recommend it. As in, if your autopilot fails because you're in combat or whatever, you've just not maintained it properly, then fair enough. But under these circumstances, it's best just to have one. and it's easier to just move around being guided by the autopilot, much quicker as well. You'll never get a lot of, let's say you're doing a delivery mission, you unlikely to make the deadline in time if you don't use the autopilot. So it's an interesting way. It's takes a lot of load off you. It's much, in some ways, actually more sophisticated autopilot than actually in in Elite Dangerous, because that's quite a limited autopilot, you know, in its functions. I think it's done on purpose to stop botting, actually, or extensive botting anyway. But yeah, cargo bay life support is useful for transporting either livestock or slaves. And the thing is, in this particular version of the game, the most profitable cargo is, guess what? Slaves. But we are in the Empire, so we might do some of that to make money, as always. But yeah, I suppose the Empire is supposed to be a much more sadistic kind of police state kind of regime. So yeah, why are we surprised? The usual ranks, criminal records, etc. Say, I'm docked in an Imperial station, so it's none of this is surprising. Now, of interest to the galactic map. Now, this is, shall we say, as in many ways, a sort of less sophisticated version of what we see in Elite Dangerous. I say by this point, a lot of the sort of basic concepts are quite similar, except for the amusing thing is that Frontier Elite 2 actually was launched with various things that Elite Dangerous didn't actually have when it was launched. Like, for example, the ability to land on atmospheric worlds. Also, the orrery map. Now, it's something that actually didn't occur in Elite for quite a long time, Elite Dangerous, that is. And it was something that was asked for from pretty much from launch. But I don't know why they didn't include it at launch, because I would have thought if you've got all the astronomical data to make a system map, you already can actually put together an orrery map without much effort. Considering this is, what, 1993, and it came as standard with the game, it can't be that hard to do. But I will show you an example of the orrery maps of different systems. Now, let's click on the system map here. Again, it's a similar sort of presentation to Elite Dangerous map, just more simplified, obviously, because of the computing power of the era. And the graphics. Let's click on, I think we're at the moment, we're at Peter's base. Yeah, we are. And at this one, orbital station, the usual sort of astronomical information. Not as much as Elite Dangerous has, but it's still pretty cool. And the world that it is a world with indigenous life and oxygen atmosphere, i.e. an Earth-like world. Some basic information about this, like orbital period, radius, and what starports it has. Now, we can land on this Earth-like world, which we will do in a little bit. We'll also give a fly around to various other things, like there's these, what we described in Elite Dangerous, where the cursor is now, as being a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a high metal content world, but this one it's called Rocky Planet with Thin Atmosphere. Okay, not high metal content worlds have an atmosphere, but this one does. Another one could be considered to be a HMC, potentially, would be something like this. Barren rocky planet. When it says barren, it means it doesn't have an atmosphere in that regard, but it's a sort of rocky planetoid, like the moon would be considered in our own solar system. And the usual sort of gas giants. It doesn't talk about specific categories, just large, medium, small gas giants. Rocky world with thick corrosive atmosphere, like Venus, really, very much that kind of world. Yeah, there's a couple of those in this system. Then a sort of smaller body. Yeah, it sounds almost rude, doesn't it? Matthew's hole. But there you go. Gotta laugh, really. But I say the orrery maps. Now, this is the system we're in anyway, but I'm going to click on the orrery map for the system, as you can for any a system. Outside of the core systems, I think they are actually procedurally generated. But here we are. This is the phase system. And this is the world at the moment, the world of Topaz. Now you see, there's kind of quite standard orrery map. This is the orbital station. So the orbital, that green line is the path of the orbit. They say they're quite a standard orrery map, really. If you zoom out to the system, it shows you the orbital lines of all the various different bodies. The other Earth-like world within the system called New America and its station. Oh yeah, the zoom into the star a little bit. It's not a massive amount of detail on the star, but again, this is the 16-bit era, so what do you expect, you know? Now, Peter's Wreck, yeah, the sort of thin atmosphered HMC equivalent in this period. And there's that little thing is the starport there, Fort Stevens, on the surface. And the orbital station. Now, some of the orbital stations will look quite familiar to you. The Coriolis design is in every version of Elite, and here is no exception. But yeah, you get the general idea of the wonders of the orrery map, which we may return to in the near future. But yeah, here we are, the Imperial systems. There's Achenar, as we know, the Imperial capital. It says seat of the Emperor. These aren't actually permit locked, interesting. In this era, permits do exist, permit locked systems, but these two ones are permit locked in Elite Dangerous, as is the Sol system in that game. But for whatever reasons, you don't have to have a permit in this one together. You do have to in other systems, but not these. I think some of these descriptions are literally copy and pasted from Frontier Elite 2 into Elite Dangerous. I'm pretty sure that this description actually does occur somewhere in Elite Dangerous. It's a good story though. The this one here talking about the new small terraformed world, small sustained terraform world. I say the basically the small terraform world of Mars in the Elite Dangerous lore, as it is in Elite Dangerous. This is a very similar place, new world, and then there's the larger terraform body of conversion, which you see the graphic is slightly different to the natural Earth-like world. Hence, world with indigenous life and oxygen atmosphere being like a natural Earth-like than the terraformed world. Also, we see other bodies here we didn't see in the previous system, like the very large gas giant of Achenar 6. The brown dwarf, which doesn't look very brown, but then again, I suppose they're not, are they? In this or Elite Dangerous. The small gas giant, and the Class B hot star. It's quite funny seeing these sort of relatively low-res VGA graphics on a sort of modern monitoring system. It always looks more arcane and archaic than I remember, but then again, I say for the time it seemed quite impressive, but that's just life, I suppose, isn't it? Like what is considered to be cutting-edge graphics in 10 years will look pretty sort of dull and lifeless in comparison, but that's always the way, isn't it? Yeah, small asteroidal bodies here as well. There are other details obviously available in the system, describing the government types and population, other details. And the as you're a trader, or if you're a trader, very necessary exports and imports. But we'll get flying anyway, because it's a good idea to give you some idea of what the game is like in a sort of day-to-day level. Okay, the bulletin board, or the station board, as it's in Elite Dangerous. Again, another sort of thing that is actually conceptually pretty much the same, just the execution is different, being this much older version of the game. Right, okay. These are various missions available. Let's take a small packages, sometimes dubious things, sometimes completely legit. The usual passenger missions, military missions. Assassination missions as well are available. Sometimes the things that you can contribute to a charity to help boost your reputation. Goods bought and sold is a thinly disguised black market, basically. Sometimes they're not actually black markets, they're actually police traps, but you won't know until you actually click on the advert. But that's just the way that it is. Okay, right. Actually, let's have a quick look through the shipyard. The various things, repairs and services. Let's contact local police. Nope, I have no business with them. That's good to know. Now, what ships are available in this yard? There's the usual odds and sods. Now, let's view some of these. The interplanetary shuttle, as it describes, doesn't really have a jump drive of any kind. It's just purely from one planet to the other. It doesn't even have atmospheric shielding, so you can only go from one starport in space to another one. You can't go from so you have an atmosphereless world to another one. If you try to enter an atmosphere of a planet, it will just disintegrate. So, not really advised. Very cheap though. Oh, the Eagle Mark III. Yes. Again, not the fighter of the longest range, but an interesting little ship. Quite fast and quite fun. You see, only one crew member necessary. One of the downsides of this version, despite the fact, say, for its era, it was sophisticated and you had all these various different sorts of areas that, say, modern Elite still has, at a time when most space games just weren't this complicated. Yeah, compared to Elite Dangerous, it isn't that complicated, but for its time, it kind of was. But one of the interesting things is that the sort of ship model is quite different in the way it feels and the way it flies, but you'll get a sense of that once we get out into space. But yeah, one of the main disadvantages compared to Elite Dangerous is that you can't have a collection of ships. If you want, let's say, buy this Eagle, for example, in front of us, you have to actually trade in your existing ship for it in part exchange. And that's a shame, really. It's probably something to do with memory constraints, I reckon, or storage constraints. Most likely, I reckon, storage constraints and individual save files, but I'm not a developer, so I couldn't be 100% sure. But, of course, I can make an educated guess as to why. But, yeah, Eagle's a fun ship. In any version of Elite, it's a fun ship. Yeah. Now, this is something that definitely isn't in later versions of Elite. It's the Imperial Trader. That's an interesting looking vessel, definitely. Now, interestingly enough, this is actually a relatively large ship, but it only has one crew member, I think because it's supposed to be more automated. This is only available in Imperial systems, hence the Imperial Trader. There is an Imperial Courier in this era, but it looks completely different to the Imperial Courier of the Elite Dangerous. It just has the name in common, and that's it. Let's click on the Osprey Attack Fighter. That's an interestingly looking ship, and it's quite fun too. Has a higher thrust to acceleration. You see 27 Earth G. Yeah, see dry fitted class 1 military drive. But you say you have to buy military fuel. When you use military fuel, what happens is that it produces from the antimatter reaction these radioactives. And that's fine because you can usually sort of sell those at Starport through the bulletin board as normal, or through as you do for any other trade item like you do bio waste or whatever. The only downside is there are some systems like Sol and Achenar where radioactive materials are actually banned, so you have to kind of surreptitiously dump them at the edge of the system after you've just jumped in. Because if you dock at a starport with them, the police will fine you for that. Not heavily, but they will give you fine and a criminal record. So it's not ideal, really. It's not really worth the hassle. It's best to just dump them most of the time. Hello to anyone who's just joined us. I'm Commander Yannick, and this is a trip into retro gaming and Frontier Elite 2. Not to be confused with Frontier First Encounters, which is the third game of the Elite series, and the next one after this, which came about in 1995. Okay, right, I'm fueled up. Let's have a look at where we're going to go. Now, my plan to start with is to have a little trip to the request system. Maybe buy some slaves and trade them. It is fantasy after all, so let's do that. I think these days you could probably program a much better game just off the bat, even if you weren't a professional developer. But yeah, it's I think the big difference between graphics from 8-bit to 16-bit was absolutely a massive leap, because you could use so many more colors. Right, we've left the station. That's the Earth-like world ahead of us. Let's look backwards. It's the station we've just come from. Click on some labels to see where we are. This is the external view of the spacecraft. Yeah, the Earth-like world is referred to as Topaz. I think we're the wrong side up, actually. Or are we? I don't think so. But either way, if you look around, you can see the different worlds are labelled wherever they may be. In this one, because you're sort of always trying to be navigate relative to something, says relative to Peter's base in the right hand side of the screen. Yeah, actually, it might be a good idea to land on an Earth, like maybe not just yet, but in the near future. I'll do so on the return leg of the journey. But let us fly off to the quest system. Now, interestingly enough, you don't have to be aligned with the system like you are in Elite Dangerous to jump. You just activate the hyperspace jump, and it's by pressing this button here. Now, note what the time is here. It's the 13th of June, 32:02. And look at when we come out. We've just come out some 6 days later. So yeah, the jump took that long. It's quite funny, really. But that's what it is. It takes a certain amount of time to journey that distance through hyperspace. I assume there's some kind of time warp thing going on, or you're just literally more likely is suspended by some kind of field that slows down time. Otherwise, within 6 days of like not eating, you would die. So you know, well, maybe not 6 days, but you know what I mean. It wouldn't be good. Right, go to the orrery map. Little dots are other ships in the system. Let's zoom in. In this case, to navigate, you have to click onto the orrery map anyway. So here we are. Biggs Hollow is the system target of us. It's the only inhabited planet in the system anyway. And we're going to the orbital station of Dickens Base. Now this is where it gets unusual. Say before, it's like you have to use autopilot realistically. I like the targeting tunnel on this. It's actually that sort of squares that were sort of coming forwards towards you. I think it's very heavily influenced by the Alien games. Ooh, we're under attack already. Now I've just paused it for a second because you can do this. You can manipulate time, you know, forwards and backwards. Not backwards, sorry, but you can pause it and then fast forward it. But now they're under attack. You can see the laser, and you can see the ship. And I am going to. This is another where the autopilot comes in very handy. You can actually target the other ship to give you a better shot, as it were, because these are fixed weapons in this. There are turrets, but they're even less fun than they are actually in Elite Dangerous. But let's see what we can do. I don't expect necessarily to survive this encounter because this guy might outgun me. Yeah, he's been hitting my shields already. Oh damn. I did kill him, but I lost half my hull. It is a trade ship after all, so let's have a look. Yeah, my atmospheric shielding has been damaged beyond repair, it seems. I have to fix that when I get into the next port. Yeah, that's not too bad. I did have shields, but he melted through them pretty quickly. I don't know why the game's not making any noise. This is really quite strange. It should be. It's all gone very quiet. Oh dear. Bear with me for a second. Yeah, I didn't know why it just came off. That was very weird. Yes, again, the charmingly retro music. Tell me if that's too loud or too quiet over the music in the background. It shouldn't be too loud, I hope, but anyway, not to worry. Another ship's attacking me. Well, I never. Oh, yeah. Hello, Commander. Commander Painter Knight, yep. Well, that's cool. Now, the Amiga version of this was very cool. I mean, you say I had a friend of mine who had it, and it's very much the same kind of game. The graphics are very slightly different, but it was good fun to play. Yeah, it's true. It's like about targeting ships with short water pirates. The thing is, this trader I'm in at the moment, it doesn't have very good armament or shields. Because obviously I'm trying to save most of the actual space in the ship for cargo rather than weaponry. I think I'm going to die this time, actually. Yeah, I died. Yeah. Yeah, it's relatively straightforward in this to build a good combat ship. Yeah, there we go. We're back at Peter's base again, but I'll return to that system and try and do what we can. But yeah, that gives you some idea. Thing is, the ship doesn't turn very quickly, but yeah, you're right. It is fairly relatively straightforward in a well-armed ship to be able to kill various pirates. That system isn't usually too bad for them. Yeah, the small ships are... if you can ram them, it's great, but as I say, depending on how agile your ship really is. This one isn't agile at all, so it's not helpful, really. Most of the big trader ships aren't very agile. But yeah, it's good fun. Yeah, I think the actual combat mechanics for Frontier First Encounters were a bit different again. We're under attack. I don't know why the music's gone off again. It keeps doing this. It's a shame, really. It's annoying me. Just leave the music on, please, you know. Actually, the sound effects are a bit annoying. I'll turn them off. Music on there. Continuous music. There he is. Or they are, I should say. Oh, damn. That was quick. They didn't have a chance that time. This is the thing, you can't turn quickly enough. There's no way you can kill them. Well, you can. Oh, well. That's a bit better. It's continuing now. I think I'll go to the Earth-like world here just to show what that's about. Alright, let's leave the station under normal power. I think there was a console version of this as well at one point. I'm trying to remember if it was actually a Mega Drive Genesis or something similar. I'm pretty sure there was a console one at some point down the line. I had to look that up actually. Right, see if we can land at the starport on the surface here of Topaz. Ooh, there it is. Right, okay, let's go. Go to the external view as well of this. Thing is, you can't actually name your ships in this either. Well, you can name them, but you couldn't put it into the game. So yeah, you can see the atmosphere when you get it close. Oh, there you can now. You can see the edges of the atmosphere. Okay, that's not totally realistic, but it's not bad. There are a certain amount of bugs in this, but not an insane amount. Especially compared to its successor game, Frontier First Encounter, which was kind of riddled with bugs, actually. Okay, let's see what goes. Well, hopefully the autopilot doesn't actually kill us. That does happen sometimes. Yeah. Actually, if I rotate the ship a little bit, maybe. Actually, it'll do it of its own accord anyway. Yeah. Here we are, we're approaching. Hundreds of kilometers away. Maybe slow it down into real time now. Right, Camp Jameson. Here we go. And howdy to anyone who's just joined us. I'm Commander Yannick, and we're looking over some of the history of the Elite Games series. This is the second. This is Frontier Elite 2, the charmingly 16-bit retro game. See those little orange things you see coming towards us? Those are actually the hyperspace trails of ships that have departed. Hyperspace wakes, I suppose, is the best way to describe them, aren't they? Again, like the FSD wakes later on, Elite Dangerous, you can actually get an analyzer to see where the ships are going. So that's useful. If you want to assassinate somebody and you've caught up with them but they got away, that's usually quite a good thing to have. Right. Okay, it's lining me up now for the descent into the starport. There we go, clearance granted. This is fun. I'm not being sarcastic, by the way. Right, let's zoom out a bit further. Yeah, there's some factories or other things in the background. A settlement of some kind. I think they're actually all kind of the same, or more or less the same. I think it might actually be the same pattern reused again and again. Again, with very limited memory, you do have to do things like that. The textures are quite interesting, though, I will say. Rather than just polygons, they're actually textured polygons. I think that was quite an unusual thing at the time as well. Rather than just pure polygons. Yeah, here we are. But you say if the atmospheric shielding had completely failed, we would be toast by now. The little blue bit is the thrust as it goes down, unsurprisingly. And the pad is designed for a much larger ship. I think the biggest ship you can get in this game and fly is the Panther Clipper, which a lot of people will probably remember as something a lot of people have asked Frontier to put into Elite Dangerous from this era of Elite. Quite a lot of the ships have actually made it forward. This Tiger is not one of them, but you'll recognise quite a few of them as I play through this. We'll have to leave the Imperial system to actually find a better range of spacecraft, actually. Actually, that's what I might do. I might end up flying to the Federation sort of areas of the galaxy, because the bubble in this is smaller than it actually is in Elite Dangerous. Plus, I won't ignore the copy protection. I think it's been broken by this point anyway. Okay, wonderful. External view. Looking around, see the little clouds in the distance. But yeah, back to the bulletin board and the like. Actually, what I am going to do, instead of trading at the moment, I am going to load up with hydrogen and fuel and let's swing by the Federation systems, because we might actually have more opportunity to actually showcase the game there. Because a better range of ships mostly. I can do some bits and bobs I can't really do so easily here in the Imperial systems. Right, loaded up on hydrogen and fuel. Let's launch request and get going. I don't know what's going on with the sound in this. It keeps on cutting out and then coming back together again. The rear view. Again, it's like I don't understand why this earlier version Elite has an automatic rear camera and the later ones just don't. Very weird, but yeah, obviously when we go to external camera, it's the same as it ever was. I think we're emulating an older title like this. It's not perfect. I mean, the frame rate is slightly worse than I remember from this period, but then again, I don't think it actually, the original's sort of draw rate was that amazing. But yeah. So the terrain is not that detailed, but then again, it's a 16-bit machine, so don't be surprised. See, it's easy to forgive this era of the game for obviously being limited technologically, for had these reoccurring tiles of terrain. For Odyssey, it is not okay. It's like, are you really taking us back in time, Odyssey? Really? And not in a good way? Still, let's fast forward ourselves. So we then... Oh yeah, the undercarriage has to be pulled up. Thank you for reminding me. Undercarriage can be destroyed by meteorites. Never actually happens, but it's a nice warning though. Right, as we exit the atmosphere. We could actually hit hyperspace much earlier. I just wanted to do this because it's fun. Yeah, this is not exactly the best ship for long distance travel, but it'll do, you know. It's got a fair amount of fuel capacity, so I'm not too concerned. Okay, let's go. Let's fly. Now, I'll just give some overview to where we're going. And you can't actually plot long routes. You can only plot literally one jump at a time. So I'm going to go to the quest, through some of these systems here, the Edge of the Empire, here into... You probably recognise some of these systems now. Delta Pavonis, Beta Hydri, into the Federation. So this sort of purple line is considered to be like a well-used trade route. And then up through here, because I've got quite a relatively short-range drive, I have to follow some of these purple trade route lines potentially. Or I could just fly via Epsilon Indy, which I might end up doing. And Ross 154, which is the starter system in the game if you've got an Eagle. You can start at Lave alternatively, but you don't have an autopilot as standard with that. So you have to buy one. But you do get a Cobra though, so that's a bit more retro in that regard. But obviously the old world systems, you know, Lave, SD, etc., or and stuff are all part of the original sort of Elite as well. Then Barnard Star onto Sol, and there's the Sirius system, which we all know and love, and all the systems surrounding that. But yeah, we'll get there in the near future. Okay, onwards we go. I'll have to probably dock and refuel at some point, but let's have a go. Where's the music gone? Seriously, just don't know why it keeps turning. Every time I think you reload it, it does this. Actually, just as the side, this is a slightly interesting system because it says Imperial Terraform World. But one of these I think is actually an ice world. I think it's the Orok Colony. There we are. It's sort of... This is also an Earth-like world, but it's frozen. The entire planet's frozen. So that's why you can see that sort of white-ish colour. It's got an orange star though. Class K orange star. Exoids. But I'm not stopping here anyway. I think I've got a lot of fuel still left. Yeah, I do. Okay, onwards, ever onwards. As I say, I'm just jumping from place to place, keeping an eye on my fuel levels. as we get closer and closer to the core. Yeah, my small 8 light year range is not great, but it'll take me to Ross 154, which is in its own way a sort of key system, only because it is the starter system, as I say, for this game. This is the one. You start at the Earth-like world, the also frozen world of Merlin and Sirocco Station, with the gas giant of Asta there. The music is quite amusing because obviously it's the sort of synthesized versions of various classical music. Go to Barnard Star. Oh, that's quite interesting. Broadcast all in range, yeah. Because you can see you're under attack, but no one will ever help you. Onwards to Barnard Star. Let's go to the Sol System and see what they have in there in store for us. Not used all our fuel, which is good. Alright, let's look at the Sol System. Historic system, famous, both the birthplace of humanity, but it's called capital of the Federation. Indeed it is. Let's say I'm pretty sure this is copied and pasted into Elite Dangerous as well. Let's go to Mars actually, because that's it's kind of how you expect. It doesn't quite as ready looking as it is in orangey looking in Elite Dangerous, but we'll go there anyway. Let's go to Mars High. In this, obviously, a lot of the Earth-like worlds are quite, you know, identical. Unsurprisingly, there's not that much variation in them. But again, not surprising considering the technical limitations of the period. There is the standard Earth-like world. There's the frozen Earth-like world. Outdoor ice world, they often refer to it as. There's desert ones that don't look any different though. They seem to be also kind of green looking, which is a bit weird and slightly unrealistic probably. A bit like Dune really, you know. It's supposed to look like that, but it doesn't for some reason. Now this is an orbital city rather than a station. I get the impression this is like some of the larger starports, like the Orbis ones in Elite Dangerous. Well, this kind of configuration doesn't really exist by that point. Only the Coriolis is the continuance through all three of them. 4 of them, I should say. You know, let's have a look to the docking procedure in real time. Ah, good old Mars High. It's a nice place. Fast forward a little bit so we can speed it up. Yes, indeed. There we are. There's the intro music again, which I quite like actually. It's very cool. Busy listening to the music, sorry. But yeah, let's have a look at the different ships that we can get hold of in this. Now, some of these you'll recognise, some of them not so much, but there's the classic Cobra Mark III. I think the only ship that's actually in every single version of Elite. Actually, that's not true. I think the crate's actually in all of them as well, but it's the classic Elite ship. And there's a good reason as to why. There is a Cobra Mark I actually as well. Apparently, according to the law, there was a Cobra Mark II, but it suffered from quite significant and fatal problems, so they decided to skip onto the Cobra III. There's the lifter, which I think is some kind of industrial transporter. There's not much you can really do with it, though. I think it's just supposed to be there for out of interest, really. It's actually the era I see when David Braben was like the leading lights of this game. You can tell where he's input in all of this. Obviously, I still respect the guy massively, but we're talking about games and how things change. The adder looks fairly different in this as it does in Elite Dangerous. Let's click on it. It's somewhat more rectangular looking. It's always actually a better ship relative to the game in Elite 2 than it is actually in Elite Dangerous. Because it's like almost like one of the sort of entry-level ships in Elite Dangerous, but it's actually a bit better than that in this, relatively speaking. It's still kind of like quite low down the food chain, but you know, it's quite a good ship to have early on in the game, definitely. But let's go back a stage. Almost things like the Lion Transport, a very sort of typical kind of trader. Quite simple looking, does the job. Not massively exciting, but I'd say more of a stepping stone to better ships. Interesting. These are like the larger ones you can fly. The Puma. The music's taking a bit of a step up now, isn't it? Yeah, Transporter, again, like a very ordinary ship. Very utilitarian, not particularly exciting, but not bad. Not bad. The Constrictor, again, another snake. Similarly, it's like quite a practical ship, but maybe one for the future. Elite Dangerous or whatever Elite Dangerous or with Elite games come next. I think this is one of the things I'd mentioned this I know a few times, but Odyssey feels like a different game again to Elite Dangerous. It might have been a good idea if they had actually released it just as a new game. It made a lot more sense because it doesn't feel like a DLC. It feels like something completely different. Not completely different, but it feels like an Elite game, but not the same game as Elite Dangerous. In some ways, like Frontier First Encounters is similar to Frontier Elite 2, but it's actually a new game. There's obviously, and the thing is, Odyssey feels like that way to Elite Dangerous itself. Like it's the basis is the same, but it's like a new version of the same universe, you know. What else do we have of interest? We can go to the major ships there. See if I can find a crate or something else next time out, but see what other things and crimes are amazing. Yeah. I can do military missions and various kind. You can get to the point where you do military deliveries and military assassination missions down the line. I haven't got to that point just yet. See, the Sirius Corp exists at this point as well, so it's definitely big in the lore of Elite. I could do pasture missions, I suppose, in this as well, but at the moment they don't pay that well. Sometimes it can be interesting because sometimes there's a person who's wanted by the authorities or by a pirate or whoever. They'll send a ship after you if you actually transport them. Those are quite fun. Right, okay, let's have a look, fly around the system a bit more. I think I need to refuel, so the way you do that is you go to the stock market. It's not like buying stocks and shares, but literally it's in like where you buy and sell your commodities. I'm going to stock up on hydrogen fuel. You see with this, there was a separate fuel tank. There's your hold has your hydrogen fuel. Where the cursor is, that's the internal like fuel tank for the sublight stuff. But yeah, it's useful, but it's very different. The main hold has your hydrogen fuel. Okay. Here in the Sol system, let's return to the home of humanity, Earth. So in this case, they have actually made unique. Let's zoom in a bit. As you can see, the continents, Sydney. Japan, looking rather lonely up there by itself. It's supposed to be like post-World War III, and the Earth has been sort of partly reshaped by nuclear warfare. London, Paris, Moscow, New San Francisco. I assume the original one was blown up in a nuclear war. And the whole of the Earth in the world of the 16-bit computers. Let's fly to Earth, but let's fly to one of the stations. Qingzhou. Or Liqingzhou, sorry, not Qingzhou. Liqingzhou. I see the pronunciation is right. Apologies if I get it wrong. One thing about Achenar and the Sol system, you're pretty sure that you can be safe from pirates because the security level is incredibly high. It's only the authorities who ever try and shoot you down. Let's skip this bit forwards. Here we are. Let's see what other ships we have. Okay, the Viper defense craft, i.e. the Viper Mark 1. See, obviously it's the Viper 3 by the time Elite Dangerous rolls around, but, you know, it's a nice ship. This is the Viper Mark 1. There's a Viper Mark 2 in Frontier First Encounters, but you get the general idea. It's a sort of fast, pointy-looking ship. Yeah, it's very good fun to fly this, and a good acceleration. Very maneuverable, generally enjoyable. Yeah, I could trade in for this to say part exchange. They'd give me money in part exchange because the cost of the ship is much higher than that one. I'd consider it, but let's go back a stage. Ooh, the Panther Clipper. Let's have a look. Now this, the biggest ship that you could get in this part of Elite, on this area of the game, something that people have asked for almost continuously since it was kickstarted in 2012. But this is the ship that it's based upon. Unsurprisingly for a big trader, it's actually got a huge drive and it's very sluggish. You can't actually see its full range, but it's higher than 5 million light years because it's got a Class 8 hyperdrive, which isn't actually on that scale down there for hyperspace ranges. Still. If I were to randomly fly elsewhere in the solar system, actually I might land on the Earth just on purpose, just as a comparison. But if you go elsewhere in the solar system, there's the usual things. Oh, the Coriolis as well. Let's go to the Coriolis of Daedalus. Orbital Trading Post. I might return to this for a Earth-like world. Now this is the good old-fashioned Coriolis station that we all know and love. Obviously it's graphically simplified compared to the later versions of Elite. This is with the noob hammers and everything. Some things never change. Some things always remain the same, and this is one of them. Yeah. It's very cool though. And welcome to anyone that's joining us. I am Commander Yannick, and this is Retro Elite. Elite Dangerous. Predecessor game. Frontier Elite 2. Yeah, let's try landing on the Earth. let's pick somewhere random and land. Yeah, let's just do it manually, actually. See if I can land on this manually. I haven't tried this for a while. I probably can. Actually, that's to make it easier. Let's try and fly on autopilot to... let's fly to London and then try and land nearby. Yeah. Okay, I've now landed in London. Yeah, you just fast forward these little bits, but yeah. And you got to keep this as you top up your internal tank. See this little green line? There's your internal fuel tank for your sublight flight. Ooh, a shipyard here. See what they've got in stock. Now Cobra Mark 1. Simplified kind of version of the laser Cobra, a bit smaller as well. Similar idea, really. Shame they don't have this in Elite Dangerous. I quite like it. That's sort of stepping stone ship, really. That's kind of what it is in this. The first time I ever played it back in the 90s, this was definitely a big stepping stone ship for me as I was learning the game. Because it's inexpensive, but it's got quite a good all-rounder still. It's not quite as great as the Cobra 3, but I'd say it's a bit cheaper, therefore it's easier to buy when you're first starting out. Also, the Asp Explorer. It comes all the way back to this period, I believe. Sort of, it can be familiar kind of pancake shape of the ship, but yeah. I think technically speaking, the Asp Explorer of Elite Dangerous era is actually like the Asp Explorer Mark III or something. By that point, they just don't call it that for some reason. Anyway, better continue. Let's do this on manual. Let's take off and go flying around the scenery. Let's fly over the settlements at low level and see what we can find. Actually, let's keep the undercarriage out. Might be a good idea. This is supposed to be London, but all cities look generically the same in this. Yeah, see where the there's two things. There's the main crosshair forwards, and then there's the direction of the nose, which is slightly different. The direction of flight. Yeah, I'm flying over the settlement. There's sort of crudely generated bits of it, but it's still pretty cool though for the era, I think. Yeah. So I can get it a bit lower to the ground. Should probably slow down a bit as well if I do that. There's some greenery over here as well, which I'll probably fly towards. Should get some speed up to get over here. Just a few shadows of the clouds over there. Random greenery. Try and land near one of these greens. Yeah, let's slow down a bit so the spacecraft will not crash into them. Yeah, so actually I think I should slow down quite substantially. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so I think I'm actually speeding far too fast. That's better. You have to land it almost like an aircraft, like nose slightly up. Make sure I deployed the landing gear. Aha, the gears come out. Hope it doesn't crash. No, it did crash. Rate of descent was far too high. I need to be less than a few meters a second. I think my thrusters are very weak on this as well. Oh well, hey ho. There's nothing wrong with dying for the stream. We're back inside the Empire at Peter's Base, I think. Here we are. Ah. You've got our laugh though. Right. Let's do some more fun things. We should buy a faster spacecraft and fly around with that. Having said that, I want to land on the moon as well. That's probably a good idea. Actually, I think I should do that. I think I should repeat what I did. I should have probably saved it too. But I will fly, I think, to the Earth's moon. Because you can land on it there. Should probably pick a better spacecraft to do it in as well, but we'll see. Okay, let's go. Solar system, here we come. See, if you look backwards through it, it kind of turns orange as you're going through hyperspace. You come out the other side. The exit of hyperspace is that sort of bluey white colour. The entrance is, for some reason, orange. Never really explained as to why, it just is. Each of these jumps are taking about 6 days to a week to complete. Keeping an eye on my fuel level. It's gone quiet again. I wonder why. It always does this, doesn't it? It's really safe when I get to Sol. Just so I don't have to, if I die, I don't have to keep coming back here. That's another thing that you can't really do in Elite Dangerous. You can't really like save the game. You just exist where you exist with it because it's an MMO, isn't it? Cool. Let's go to the to the moon. To Apollonus City. This is interesting because this is by law the place where Apollo 11 first sat down on the moon, and they built an entire city around it with the preserved descent stage of Apollo 11. It'd be really cool if we did that in real life, like as a sort of memorial to humanity's first step onto another world. So yeah, this is what a sort of moon-like landscape looks like in this version of LA. You see, you've got the various domed world, sort of domed settlements, the large antenna dish there, and some small sort of hills nearby. Obligatory factories belching out exhaust. And you've got the station there, the starport, which is obviously indoors. You get pressurized bay. Speed it up a little bit. Yay. Safe landings. Copy protection is irrelevant anyway. Let's skip that. Yeah. Hello to anyone who's joining us. I'm Commander Yannick. And this is a step back in time to Frontier Elite Dangerous. The usual odds and sods. You got to get the Van Med in the star system, you need a permit for that, so again that one's permit locked. Actually technically it isn't really locked. I think if you go to a permit system in this version of the game without a permit, you just get fined. It's not actually locked per se, but you know. Okay, what ships do they have here? Yeah, let's buy something else, have some fun with it. I'll save this. So sell the bits of the old spacecraft. Sell all the things that I have left. Oh, energy bomb as well. Cargo bay life support. Sell that too. It's all good. It's all good. Basically, an energy bomb is something that can destroy a large number of spacecraft at the same time. It's just like a huge sort of, yeah, as it suggests, an energy weapon that kind of goes off. Like a nuclear weapon, I suppose. But I think it's more of an EMP kind of device by the looks of it than a conventional nuclear warhead. Okay. I've sold a lot of things inside. Yeah, I have. Got to sell the beam laser and the shields as well. Sell the shield generators. Sell the those. Sell the beam weapon. Cool. Nothing else I got to sell? No, all good. Now this time I can buy a new ship. What ship, chat, shall I use? Which one do you think I should buy? I already have a Tiger Trader, Cobra 3, or the Viper Defense Craft, just for mucking around in. I'm kind of inclined to go for the classic Cobra 3, just because. Let's have a look at what colours we have available. We've got the kind of gunmetal grey. I think there might be different colours possibly. No, this one's also similar. Let's look at the Viper. That's not any different in colour. Damn it. Ah. This one's kind of more flexible in terms of the drives you can put in it. You can have some quite extensive ranges. Cobra 3. Maybe I'll put that. Actually, let's buy a Viper, sort of. Yeah, much smaller spacecraft, yeah. Right. Could put various weapons at naval missiles, etc. But I think fitting a beam laser is probably a better idea. 20 tons actually for this spacecraft is probably way too big. Class 5 pulse laser, I think, probably. Makes a bit more sense. It's much smaller. Hey, what else do we require? At least a couple of shield generators, yeah. Pardon me. Actually, one shield generator, I'll remove that one. I think pilot, we need that. And a scanner. Always need atmospheric shielding as well. Check out what we have. Pardon me. Is there anything else I need for this craft? I could fit a military drive. But then again, I require military fuel for that. I'll leave it for now. If you've got a group of ships attacking you, often fitting an energy bomb can be the easiest way to get rid of them all. Problem is you're going to have one in the spacecraft at once. So you can just, you have to pick your moment very carefully. Oh, I have to fire those people. Yeah, that's a good point actually. because I don't need them as crew anymore, so, you know. Okay, actually I only need one shield generator, so I remove one of these. Cool, cool. Refuel the spacecraft. Refueling. Yeah, see, 12 light years isn't too bad for a spacecraft at this. Could go elsewhere, but I think I'll stay within the solar system for now. Let's fly across the surface of the moon as well. Something we can't actually do in Elite Dangerous, which is a shame, really. I had planned the Apollo 11 expedition to actually land on the Earth's moon originally, but I thought that Frontier might open it up by that point, but they never did, so, you know. I did inquire about it, but unfortunately that was never really a thing. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, cool. Actually, how many of you out there have actually played these earlier versions of Elite? Any of them before Elite Dangerous, really? Any of those first three versions of the game? Okay, let's have a look. Let's actually put some more fuel in the spacecraft. And we'll fly across the lunar surface. Let's see what we can find. Yeah, pressure must be worn at all times. No pressure suit, no life. Oh, hey Kit. How's it going? Yeah, it's this is the thing about this version of the game. You can actually fly around on planets, and it's quite good fun, really. Let's fly along near these domes, I think. You can land inside these, actually. It's not... They didn't really take that into account properly with this. Let's go to the external view. Yeah, this is the Viper Mark 1 Viper Defense Craft. You see that little skid block is actually its undercarriage? That tiny little wire at the bottom. Yeah, it's quite fun, really. Yeah, I mean, I had that thought as well, actually, Kit, that Odyssey has some shocking similarities to this. That, you know, it's the repeating terrain thing. I know it's a bit tongue-in-cheek when we say that, but it's the repeating terrain thing, definitely. And these, back when this was made, the 16-bit era, you can understand why, because they just didn't have the memory to have these, and, you know, huge procedure-generated terrains. But they do now, so it's like, why are they going back to using, like, pre-rendered terrain blocks? It just doesn't look great, you know, and it's like, you know, you're going back literally to, like, the 1990s by doing that, and it isn't a good look, you know. But yeah, this is the Earth's moon, I say relative to the moon. And Apollo City, yeah, you don't have a little Apollo 11 somewhere over here, but it's supposed to be, according to the lore, somewhere around here. So yeah, encased in its own dome apparently. So you've got the little settlement here with all its life. Yeah, no, it's a cool one. Hey there, Commander Messalino. No, that's cool. It's these, playing any of these sort of retro games, it's always interesting because if you played it first time around, it's always like an interesting blast from the past, but at the same time, it's that feeling of like, oh my god, this is great, but it feels so primitive compared to, you know, playing Elite now. But yeah, I say, like, you know, so many things that it actually had, Elite 2 had at launch that actually Elite Dangerous didn't have at launch. It only got put in later. I mean, you can't actually land on thick atmospheric worlds at all in Elite right now, when you can in these earlier versions of the game. So it's, yeah, it's I know, I understand they wanted like the best possible sort of versions of it, but it's like, I don't know if it's just a budgetary thing or what, but it's just, yeah, I don't know what the timeline is supposed to be, but it's just a shame we've never really got that out of Elite more recently. But this is fun though. Let's fly over these factories. Let's speed up a bit, actually. I might crash into the ground potentially as well, but you never know until you try. You're right, it is about 300 by 200 pixels. I think somebody actually like redid or had like revitalized the version of Frontier First Encounters with more modern graphics. I did consider doing that, but I think Drew Wagar may have done that quite recently already, or he did like some version of Frontier First Encounters. But I thought, why not just show it as it was? You know, warts and all. Is by 300 by 320 by 200. That is the resolution, I think. Yeah, this particular one's like PC VGA 265 colors. I think the Amiga one was pretty much exactly the same, apart from it had only like 64 colors, and then the ST version was about 16 colors. So you know, it's got some kind of color variation at least. So. You know. See if I actually land on the moon. This is a good idea. Do my own landing and tribute. I'm going to slow this down quite considerably. I can't land at 1,000 kilometers an hour. That would be rather foolish. I think that you've got to land at a very slow speed. Otherwise it just doesn't work. There's no engineering in this game either. So you can't go around modifying the engines. Yeah, I've heard about that Russian website version. I think I tried to download that once. I think I did use it a couple of times. It was alright. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but it was quite good. It was, yeah, it wasn't bad actually. It was quite pretty. It was nice. I don't think it was that stable as far as I remember. This is about a couple of years back that I actually looked at it. Could be longer actually. But I don't really know whether to recommend using that one or not. I just don't have enough experience of it to be sure. But it is interesting when you get people going back to retro games and obviously having like an enthusiastic following, and somebody's a developer and manages to do it in their own time. There's been a few projects like that. What I find interesting, I don't know if it's because of the rights or what, that the original Elite is actually available free from the Frontier store, but not this one, and not Frontier First Encounters. Okay, Frontier First Encounters has more bugs to it, but this has some bugs, but not many, you know? So I thought it's quite a viable game, really. Right, now let me see. I am gonna try and land this thing. I don't know how well this is gonna work, but I can but try. Okay, I'm descending slowly. Let's go to external cam. I shall do that in a second. I see the little dish rotating on that. Oh, that's quite a nice touch. as epic as possible. Yeah, and this version is like is on a website with lots of like DOS box kind of games from that era. There's a few sort of Amiga and PC ones that I found from that, like Monkey Island 1 and 2, stuff like that. Right, I'm kind of more or less dropping freely at the moment. No forward motion or very little forward motion. I should, fingers crossed, actually land okay. Yeah, I hope so. It's coming to 10 meters. Flare the nose a bit, just to make sure it lands okay. And bingo, we've landed. Yay! Landed on the moon. Again, something we still can't do in Elite Dangerous now, actually land on the Earth's moon. Yeah, relative to moon, 0 meters, landed in brackets rough. So yeah. One thing you can do actually in this version of the game once you've landed, if you have a mining machine, you can deploy it, and it sends all these little sort of probes into the surface and starts drilling for various materials, and it can then, if you leave it, obviously like speed up time, it can actually gradually accumulate materials. So automatically, you don't actually do anything, you just have to, or you can come back to it later on, and hopefully the hopper's filled with material. But that was quite cool. Actually, I'll try and demonstrate that maybe. That might be a good idea. But I don't have one just yet. I think some of the core worlds, like the moon, are kind of mined out, unsurprisingly, by this point. Okay, let's go to external cam. Yeah, we've landed on the moon, and this is the view. Okay, that's a slight break in the graphics there, but you know. Let's zoom out actually. Yeah, we're not too far from the settlement. Cool. Now I've done that, I'm going to fly off somewhere else again. It's a good idea, actually. I think to find somewhere that you can mine, you have to fly out slightly further from human space. Oh, that's interesting. You deployed the mining rig and the game crashed the next hyperspace jump. That's unfortunate. Sounds like a bug, but yeah, the mining system was a bit buggy sometimes. I mean, it was kind of weird because if you found a system that was, let's say, untouched by people, there was no settlements in it, and you found like a seam that you could mine, it would be fine sometimes. Then you try to like do it again, it would go say, oh, mined out, but it can't be mined out because, you know. But then you deploy it again, and it would actually be okay. So it was probably RNG again. Pray to RNGesus once more. But yeah, you do get that though. It's like there were sometimes like weird bugs, like sometimes you might even like, you know, just die for no reason. Literally there's like, you didn't crash into anything because there's nothing to crash into, like you're in the middle of a system somewhere. And it was just weird, you know. But yeah, there were kind of strange bugs. Do you like you see, you know, in the background here, those clouds, that's not the planet, that's the Milky Way itself. So let's gain some altitude and get out of here. Okay. So we sort of leave the moon behind, fly away from it. Yeah, I might try and do that actually with the mining system. But instead, I mean, I'm going to actually show you the galactic map now about the sort of relative like lack of exploration opportunities. Because the thing is, at this point, unlike Elite Dangerous, you were limited because you couldn't actually go a whole calendar year within the game's time frame without refurbishing and repairing your drive. And you couldn't do that automatically out in space. So you couldn't be away from human civilization for more than a year. So you just couldn't hit the black and keep going. So you were limited to how far you could go unless you used, there was a cheat available that you could kind of jump thousands of light years, 500 light years at a time, I think, but that was quite unusual. But yeah, you could sort of fly through these different systems. A lot of these systems are still very much in Elite Dangerous, now to Cassiopeia, etc. So all these other interesting systems. Where the old world systems were. Here we are. This is the original Elite systems in the game. You've got Lozano, Slave, Tunosla, Wave, Lesty, so on and so forth, Dizo, Rediquat, etc. Redquat, sorry. But yeah, all these old world systems were in Elite, the first game, and are now in its sequel. But as you see, yeah, it's see the sector coordinates on the bottom left-hand corner showed relative to the Sol system where you were. And you could go around exploring, but it was a relatively lack of exploration. Another thing about sort of, actually you're right. There was a cheat like that. It was an exploit. Yeah, you could jump about 500 or 600 light years in a single bound. Yeah, it was probably to do with that. Yeah, you're right. It was something like that. So you could only jump in like 600 light year-ish increments. So you could get to different bits of the galaxy, all procedurally generated. And to be fair, they did actually have the galaxy available, so you could go out and find these procedurally generated systems. But yeah, without using that exploit or that cheat, whatever you want to call it, you couldn't do that. So you were strictly sort of, if you just went by the book, and your drive would just expire after a while. And yeah, you could get on inhabited systems, definitely, but you could never truly discover new things if you were using the game mechanics as they were intended. So, let me see. I could reload and get an MB4 mining machine and look for it. I feel that might not be the best use of time, though, today. So, let's visit some other places in the Sol system, I think, just to see what's what. Yeah, let's go to someone like Io and other bits of the system. Let's go to Jupiter and Saturn as well. I think those are... I don't think they were brilliant recreations, but they're kind of interesting. See how they've modelled the Sol system. Let's click on Venus, actually, because that's a fairly sort of... Venus in real life is actually quite sort of opaque as well, as in it's quite randomly sort of benign and banal looking, because it's just not that interesting, you know. The cloud decks that you can't really see anything beneath them. Uranus, how you pronounce it. Many jokes to be had. But yeah, the gas giant, as we know, on its side tilted towards the sun. The good old gas giant of Neptune. And its moon Triton. Go to Jupiter and Saturn. Yeah, Jupiter with its spot. And Great Saturn. Well, this is the thing, kid, isn't it? It's like, you're right. It's like the more primitive the game, the more your imagination has to take over and fill in the blanks, really. Because this is, as you say, like a fairly kind of primitive version of Elite, but yeah, it's got enough detail in it to at least sort of, you know, fire your imagination to some degree. But yeah, right. It was more reliant on imagination the further you go back. But you know, flashbacks from the Amiga era. Yeah. I mean, I owned both an Amiga and a PC, so I managed to sort of see games from both. But yeah, the Amiga was a great platform. I actually am going to do some Amiga retro games as well. But it seemed like a good idea to start with Elite. Actually, I'm going to fly over to Saturn, because this looks like a good place to start. Or to continue, I should say. Obviously in that whole sort of era, because I think the main difference in gaming so much isn't really even the gameplay or sort of graphics, because you don't expect graphics to be so great if you go further back in time, but it's the fact, the online element to it, because obviously in those days you always played by yourself, unless you had like a friend in the room with you. I'm going a bit too quick towards the gas giant and I think I'm going to crash into it. Okay, I'm going to have to click onto one of these moons and get there quickly as I can, otherwise I'm going to crash into the gas giant. Yeah, unless you had a friend in the same room as you, and then I've just crashed into the gas giant, so I am now dead. Yay. Thank you, autopilot, you just killed me. Okay, let's go to the IO instead or something. That might be more fun. But yeah, it's if you had the same person as in a room, you could maybe do 2-player games if the game allowed it. I don't think Elite ever had that option though. Go to the Columbus station at IO. Let's fly away from the moon. Onwards. Undercarriage down. Naughty, naughty. Yeah. Specifically tell it to go to a space station rather than to the gas giant, because that would just the gravity is so great was pulling me in and I was going way too fast. But yeah, multiplayer games there, if you weren't in the same place, it just wasn't a thing. I think that's the internet has made gaming kind of richer in that regard. Obviously we can now play from people all across the world in any time, so as long as they're up and you're up and you're on the same server at the same time, you can play with them, and the whole communities have obviously sprung up off the back of that, and it's wonderful. I mean, that's probably the biggest difference, I think, for the positive. Obviously there are still people who are going to be, you know, trolls about things that'll make life difficult for other people, but I think most people are pretty cool. Yeah, I think I'm fueled up quite well. Yeah. Let's fuel the spacecraft a bit more. And then launch in orbit of Io. Is Io? It's a place that's made almost apparently of pure sulfur. I don't really need the autopilot for this, do I? No. Let's try and land on the surface of Io, actually. Just as a comparison with the moon. I don't think it's actually radically different, but let's do that for fun. Let's study where we're facing Jupiter. So where is Jupiter relative to us? Okay, let's try and land sort of over here. So I can see Jupiter okay. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, relative to Columbus to relative to Io. But yeah. Actually, I'm going to use Jupiter as a point of reference. Let's do that. And I must admit, personally, I spent literally like at least a couple of thousand hours playing this version of the game. Got my bang for my buck, I can tell you. It's great fun. Definitely great fun. I would obviously at the moment it's like more like a sort of retro curiosity, but it's definitely fun to play because it is actually relatively simple. I mean, I think if you're used to Elite Dangerous, the sort of Newtonian physics is more like playing with flight assist off. That's the best way of describing it. It's very similar to that. Maybe not quite as hard, but as FA off in Elite Dangerous, but something quite similar. Should really slow down a bit, actually. You have to be very clever with your descent rate with this. You have to slow it down and very gradually descend. Especially if you're speeding up time like I am. Should really slow the descent rate, actually, quite considerably. Actually, the Thargoid ship is not in this game. This is the only version of Elite that has no Thargoids. You're thinking of Frontier First Encounters, which is Elite 3, which is the next game. That reintroduced the Thargoids. And I did get to the Thargoid ship with that one, where you actually get to fly a Thargoid ship. That was actually quite interesting. It was, yeah, you're right. It was one of the end game of Elite 3. Frontier First Encounters, yeah. I do remember that actually, because I downloaded a version of Frontier First Encounters about 10 years ago. And that reminded me of the Thargoid ship in that, because you had a little sort of cheat that you could download that you already got to the Thargoid ship. In the original game, I did actually get to the Thargoid ship, but yeah, this one just allowed you to do it from the word go, and it was kind of fun, you know, because obviously it's like highly maneuverable and kind of different. Okay, I'm gonna have to slow down a bit, aren't I? Bingo, landed again. Yay, I didn't die. It's always a good sign, not dying, you know. Zoom out from my little spacecraft. Well, not so little spacecraft, but it's little. Yeah, it's not that much landscape detail in this, but say, limitations of the technology, I suppose. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, I think Drew's done Frontier First Encounters. I don't know if he's done the Thargoid bit in it, though. I did watch a bit of his Frontier First Encounters stream, but it was, but yeah, I don't recall that being part of it. Unfortunately, I can't seem to get the angle on this. You can't actually look up from underneath the spacecraft, which is unfortunate because I want to see Jupiter from here. I thought I could see Jupiter in the sky. I probably can, but not through this view. I think I have to look to the turret view. Yeah. Oh, this is it. That's the turret view. Okay. So, if I'm looking up from the surface of Io up to Jupiter, so it gives you the rotational degrees, which is quite nice. See, there's little touches like that I do kind of think that it would be good for Elite Dangerous to have still, like the rotational angle of the turrets and things like that for observations that you make. But that was cool, though. I think at this point, the law was supposed to be in Elite that the Thargoids had been driven out of the known galaxy by INRA. But yeah, they're still mentioned in this part of Elite lore, but not as being a contemporary thing, and they kind of start to re-emerge around the time of Frontier First Encounters, Elite 3 kind of era. But yeah, that game came out about 2 years after this one, so yeah, that's worth doing as well. I might give that a whirl at some point on stream. But yeah, that view of Jupiter, it's cool. It's not a bad. It seems quite primitive now, but considering it's like a 3D rotational object, not just a fixed point in the sky. It's actually quite cool. I like the little radar dish. That's quite a nice touch. The way it just keeps on rotating as well. I assume it's a radar dish. I don't know what else. Maybe it's a comms thing. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really tell you. But yeah, with polygons, I think this is very few number of polygons they've got. It's yeah, about as good as technology could be at the time. Yeah, Uranus. That's the Columbus station we've been to earlier. Callisto and Ganymede, the moons. I think astronomically speaking, this is quite accurate in terms of observations. But yeah, now this is where it gets interesting. For anyone who's ever been on any expedition, mine or anyone else's, this is something that I wish Elite Dangerous actually had, but it doesn't for some bizarre reason. And I will show you what I mean. This is the orrery map, of course. This is where we are now, Columbus. You can fast forward or rewind time to show you where anything will be at any particular point. Let's have a look to Jupiter here and this angle of observation that we have. This is where it looks at the moment, from this particular perspective. Do this, you can fast forward it into the future. Look at the date now. I'm going this is the 11th of August. 1 day ahead in the game. 2 days ahead. 3. So in 3 days, or 3 and a bit days, I know this Jupiter will be in this particular position. Exactly, Kit. This is exactly what I would love for Elite Dangerous to have. And I don't know why it doesn't have that, because if the computer has already calculated the orrery map and has all the astronomical data you see in the system map, there's no technical reason why they can't actually have this fast forward into the future. Because all you're doing is moving the bodies on the orrery map into their sort of future configurations. Not the spacecraft, just the bodies. And yeah, scouting and lining up planets, because as you say, scouting is so hard because of the fact you can't guarantee where daylight will be on a planet, where a world is going to be, and because people have tried. I mean, I think we've happily at least had a couple of people who have been quite good at mathematics, quite like degree level maths and things on expeditions, but even they've sometimes been stumped, into not being able to predict where these things are going to be. It's just like a sort of educated guess half the time, even based on your own observations. Like, let's look at the rotation of Io. See that little pink dot? That's where I am on the surface. And if we fast forward it, you can see like the actual day-night terminator doesn't move very quickly. It doesn't move very much at all, actually. I'm fast forwarding it way into the future now, like 25th, 26th, 27th. For example, yeah, look, the day-night terminator's not moving very much, but let's click on another body like the Earth. That's probably a better example, actually. But you can see where the day-night sort of works for that. Or let's say go to Mars, actually. Actually, the Earth's fine. Yeah, let's do this, actually. Let's go from this view. Then if I fast forward it, as you know, you can see, let's say where London is, and then, or Moscow or wherever, you can work out when daylight ends and begins, at what time the sun will rise and set. But yeah, this is a feature that that Elite doesn't have now, and I just don't know why. It's so strange. And this is, for its time, this is really good. But why doesn't Elite have it anymore? Answers on a postcard, Mr. David Braben, or anyone else who developed this game back in the day, or works at Frontier now. Do let us know. I remember describing this to a few people on expeditions about this feature, being able to rewind or fast forward time within the orrery map, and it's just so useful. Well, it's at least fun, I mean, for expeditions it's definitely useful. But yeah, you can see the whole system. See, I'm relative to Earth now. Everything's revolving around the Earth. As you see, the whole system map is rotating. If I zoom in a bit closer, it becomes more obvious. But I'm using the Earth as the point of reference. so the whole thing's rotating relative to the Earth. But again, this is all in game. Yeah. That's an interesting point. The Ori map Elite Dangerous is more wireframe than this version. In some ways it is, actually. In some ways it's more primitive. Which, considering the technology involved, it's like, well, why? You know, I just don't know. I mean, I know this has been the like spaghettification of the code. We know this is a problem for Elite Dangerous. But I thought they were supposed to like redo a lot of the code and de-spaghettify it, but evidently that's not really happened, or as much as they anticipated it would. But yeah, I mean, again, answers in an email from any developers watching this. We would genuinely like to know. Not being mean or anything, we just genuinely would like to know, you know. But yeah, it would be nice. It would be, I would be intrigued to know. Right. Let's go somewhere else that has maybe a sort of different setup. Maybe the Epsilon Indy system or something. Yeah, I'll have to fly down to get there. But yeah, I'll probably fly there and have some fun in that system. See, with this, because of the way hyperspace works, you can be pointed at a planet and engage hyperspace, and you'll still end up in the same place. It's not like FSD Drive at all. Now, this system has always made me smile slightly because the description is very interesting. Like, because this is supposed to be like a world. Was it New Africa was supposed to be a well, Epsilon Indy, sorry, that's the wrong one I was looking at. So it was Epsilon Eridani. My apologies. But anyway, that was the one. The theme park, yeah, a whole world's a theme park. Now that's pretty interesting and kind of screwed up. Imagine like Disneyland or even Las Vegas, but on a planetary scale. Oh, hey there, Phoenix. How's it going? Hope you're all doing well. Decided to dip into this ye old version of Elite Dangerous. Are you an Elite veteran from this era then, Phoenix? I think quite a few people I know are. It's a fairly common thing, isn't it? How much fuel do I have left? Yeah, I think I've got enough fuel. I should be okay. Disney Planet in B5. Oh, sorry, Babylon 5, yeah. All the way from the 84 game. Yeah, no, I thought you were one of these people who played from 84. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought in the back of my mind, I'm pretty sure that you were. But yeah. I think a few people are, actually. I mean, I always say people like Drew as well. There's a few I know. I know Kit here is as well, who are like, 84 veterans. But yeah, should have a little medal attached to it, maybe. Genuine OGs. Right, yeah, New California. This is the planetary sort of Disneyland, really. I don't think I've seen that version of Babylon 5, the one with the Disney planet. I have seen only about half of Babylon 5. The episodes of that one probably slipped me by. Ah, really? The original Lave crew were all 84ers. Cool. I didn't know that, but it's not surprising. There's there's a lot of people who have kept going through all these years with this. But it's a wonderful series of games. It absolutely is. Ah, thanks Phoenix for the follow. Always appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't play the original Elite as much. I got into it only after playing Elite 2. I was a bit too young for the original Elite. I only really sort of started gaming in the year sort of after its release. But it's all good though. I mean, one thing I do like is that the lore has actually carried over. It's been kind of inconsistent. It has carried over at least like segment by segment through the years. I know there's some bits they had to kind of reconcile with each other in Elite Dangerous. But, you know, there was at least like good threads in like the Thargoids through all the different versions. Even if they don't actually appear in Elite 2, they are actually mentioned a few times. Because, you know, you get the... there was like the Gazetteer and the other sort of stories of life of the frontier. The 2 books that you got with Elite 2. And one of those obviously had like a series of short stories. Which talked about the lore of the game, written by various people, I think. I think probably I assume that Braber must have given them all sorts of his approval before they were released. But I thought it was quite a nice touch actually, having like a book of short stories that were all in the Elite universe with Elite 2. And there was also this cool star chart as well that had like most of the core systems, like the Federation, Empire, etc. When it came out. So, I mean, that was a nice touch. I mean, I like when games do that. I know at the moment most things are like digitally downloaded. But it's cool when you get these sort of extra, you know, odds and sods with it. I mean, it would be nice now also if people sort of gave away, you know, like short stories in like form of an ebook or a PDF or what have you. Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I don't remember actually reading that many sort of Elite fictions. I mean, like actual books, sort of post Drew Wagar and a couple of the other ones that came out early in Elite Dangerous's life. Obviously, Drew's books tend to be the most famous of them. But yeah, those... I think that was good. I mean, say the whole Elite lore is a whole subject by itself as well. But, you know, it's fascinating. It genuinely is. But yeah, back to where we are at the moment. Yeah, I mean, this... Obviously, as Kit was alluding to earlier, saying about with the more sort of primitive graphics of games of this era, that it kind of forced your imagination to run with it more. But yeah, this is always one of the things that caught my imagination about the whole idea of a planetary sort of theme park. And, you know, I mean, if you actually imagine that on a planetary scale, it's kind of mind-warping. Because people kind of lose their minds sometimes in places like Las Vegas or Disneyland if they get carried away too much. But, you know, actually having a planetary scale, if you had enough money, you could just spend your entire life there and just live in like an alternate reality and never leave. Linton Chronicles WordPress. Is this one of your own bits of lore, is it, Kit? I'll click on it. But yeah, there's lots of good short stories, I think, written by various people. One's published, you know, through publishing houses, or one's just published on the web in the Elite Galaxy. And it's, yeah, there's some genuinely very good ones out there. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Tales from the Frontier. No, I do remember that, yeah. This is the place, New California, Macyville. Macyville, sorry, not Macyville. But yeah, this is a typical sort of small terraform world. They all tend to look like this in this version of Elite. But you see the star itself is a Class K orange star. But you imagine the way that would affect people, really, growing up under a completely different classification of star, not a Class G star like the Earth has, and what have you. Actually, a kit I can't, that doesn't connect with me. It just comes up to a WordPress login page, I'm afraid. But yeah. But it's we've always said. I think the Elite community itself, especially in this era of internet versions of the game Elite Dangerous, is remarkable. It's definitely the best gaming community I've ever seen. You know, I think most people would agree. It was also interesting correlating the Orrery map with the system map, because obviously you click on New California, say small sustained terraform world, and that kind of mass, you're thinking, well, does the atmosphere escape into space, hence sustained to terraform world? Not sure quite how they do that, but you know. Then it's up to your imagination, I suppose, to work out the technology behind that, how you would sustain a sort of small world like that. Because obviously Mars doesn't have that much gravity, and part of the reason its atmosphere has mostly leaked out into space. But yeah, terraforming Mars would be a hell of an achievement, just because you've got to keep the atmosphere, and then how do you do that if you don't have that much gravity? But here we are. Yeah, we've gone to Masseyville. Yeah, so fly over the planet again. So this is, I think the actual patterns are quite similar, but it's just interesting seeing it under sort of different colours. I'm going to fly over that mountain over there because I don't think we've really done that so far. Let's fly away before the police attack me for loitering. I'm going to fly away from the base itself. Station. Ah, Linton Chronicles. Cool. Excellent. Ooh, nice. Actually, I have to slow down a bit, aren't I? I'm climbing way too fast. I don't think you actually land on these mountains, unfortunately. I think some of them are actually largely sort of almost holographic. Ooh, I think I'm descending too quickly now, from one extreme to the other. I have to get control of this spacecraft, slow it down a bit. Under control. Let's say this is based on more Newtonian physics, rather than more like FA off controls than it actually is for conventional elite flying controls, which is more like an aircraft. But yeah, if you can fly FA off, it becomes a bit easier. I mean, this is slightly easier than FA off, I will say, but it's a bit like that. It's the nearest comparison that I can come up with. That's interesting, Phoenix. Matrix Online. I don't think I've ever played that one. But it's interesting. I think as a rule of thumb, sci-fi games tend to actually have, you know, better communities in lots of places. I think because most people tend to be relatively well behaved and like more respectful on average. Plus, they're often quite creative people. Not always, but you know, on average, you know. I think I'm dropping a little bit here, aren't I? I'm probably going to have to fly forwards very slightly to keep my momentum going, so I don't drop like a stone. See if I can land on here. This will be a higher gravity world than I did last time before going boom. I don't want to drop too quickly though. That might not be a good idea. Yeah. That's very interesting about the flight model. Yeah, you don't have that much direct control other than the direction of the spacecraft and for the sort of forward thruster movement, the forward rear thruster movement. Yeah, lateral thrusters modded version. Yeah, I think I had played that one as well. FFE, I think, was just an easier game to mod as well. There's a lot more FFE mods than there were for Frontier Elite 2. For whatever reason, yeah. I think at one point there was like a whole modding community. There's a few sites dedicated to that. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I used to look at. But it was like the main sort of hub of people who were doing like FFE mods and other Elite sort of modded games. But yeah, the flight model for FFE and Frontier Elite 2 is not the most intuitive, but it is, I suppose, like accurate in the sense of, you know, is Newtonian. Push in one direction, you thrust in one direction, and you have to like counter thrust in another direction to make it work. I mean, I think in space it's not so annoying. On a planetary surface, it can be quite tricky to land. Right, try and put myself down over here near one of these factories, maybe. Assuming it's a factory. I don't really know what it actually is. Again, it's left up to your imagination to what it really is. I think in the kind of combat system for this game, it's not too bad, but I think, yeah, doing kind of intricate maneuvers, it's quite hard. But then again, I suppose that's why Elite Dangerous has an advantage, and you can move from, you know, using flight assist to not using flight assist, depending on whenever you want to. And, well, the optimum being some kind of, you know, mixture of the two. I must admit, I don't fly with FA off very much in Elite. Some people make it, you know, their business to do it all the time, but I've gone through phases of trying to do that, but it's not been a consistent thing for me. Ah, and I think I had that one actually, FFE 3D3. Yeah, that I do remember that now actually. I think that's the one I might be referred to early in the stream about an FFE modded version that I was playing a few years back. I think it was that one anyway. Sounds familiar. I think any good space game is definitely sort of worth its salt, though. I mean, in this era, there was things like X-Wing and TIE Fighter, and I love those games. They were also very cool. Make sure I've got my undercarriage out. I don't want to go smash again. Okay. Did I have the undercarriage out or not? I don't think I did, by the looks of it. Oh, bam. I didn't have the undercarriage out after all. It's very small on that ship, it's almost impossible to see. Press the wrong button again. Very easy to die in this game. Relative to the moon again. Excellent, excellent. Oh, Privateer games. Yeah, those were good. I think, obviously, that was like a spin-off of Wing Commander, wasn't it? So, yeah, I like the Wing Commander games as well. Those were fun too. Actually, let's go to the Sirius system as well. Actually, that's slightly out of range. That's annoying. Having said that, actually, let's look at Alpha Centauri. This is an interesting one. Because obviously the lore is, let's say, the first planet where liquid water was discovered. Now, I think the world is still called Eden in Alpha Centauri, as far as I remember. But what is known as Hutton Orbital isn't called Hutton Orbital at this point. It's called Eden Station. Obviously, they replaced it because it's a Coriolis at this point. But one thing that has remained the same is it's actually the longest haul sublight that you can get in the game. So they sort of transfer that into Elite Dangerous. Because Proxima Centauri is quite a way, obviously, from the two main stars at the core of the system. Another bit of interesting and amusing lore. Another one that is sort of continued over, I think, is Van Menen's Star. The Guardians of the Free Spirit, a religious sect. Again, it's a permit system, but it's not actually permit locked, because permit locking isn't really a thing in this. You just get fined and, you know, get a bad rep and I think a criminal record for violating a permit. But yeah, I mean, I think of all the space games of this period, I think Elite Frontier, so Elite 2 is probably my favourite still. Very closely followed by probably TIE Fighter. But yeah, the Wing Commander and Privateer games were really good as well. I definitely like those ones a lot. I think what else there was in terms of space games of that time, because there's quite a few good ones. Yeah, I think a lot of the lore sorts of descriptions of these are kind of cut and pasted into later versions of Elite as well. So these are the interesting ones here, like Eta Cassiopeia, Federal Naval Base. I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else of great interest. I mean, Sirius itself is an interesting one. I like the idea of this, apart from being the first corporate system that the Sirius Corporation obviously comes from, because it's named after it. But there's a bit about the vast amounts of cheap energy available from the planet Lucifer, and you have like these huge planetary-sized coils wrapped around the planet to actually gain the energy from the nearby white dwarf star. Yeah. Synthesis of custom elements. Well, it's technically not an element then, is it? If it's a molecule with a little bit of antimatter in the middle, which is what military fuel was supposed to be all about. But custom molecules, definitely. Yeah, see, in this one, the orrery map is of a lot of use. I think it's Sirius B that it's around. See, that's... White dwarfs in here look like that with a little ring around it. They're not quite the pain they are in Elite Dangerous, but you know. This is Lucifer. Again, a very sort of sulfur-based planet, I think. But yeah, this is the world that supposedly wrap these magnetic coils around to gain the energy passing through the magnetic flux tube, I think, of Sirius B. Sounds interesting. Is it possible? It's a very good sort of sci-fi story, though. So you know, that sort of ghostly kind of color that the white dwarf gives off. Right, and also another one significant in the lore of Elite Dangerous is this. The Tau Ceti system. First colony, human colony outside the Sol system. The first alien life was discovered, but mostly eradicated. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me with the sort of history of humanity colonizing new places. Or even on Earth, like colonizing the Americas from European settlers, wiping out indigenous species and other humans they encountered there. So, not really a shock they might sort of wipe out other life. Ooh, another one that was an interesting piece of lore from this era of Elite was Achenar 6D, the home of the Empire, the home planet of the Empire. Allegedly had some kind of sentient species on it that was wiped out by the early colonists in a calculated kind of genocide. Which wouldn't surprise me, really. Apparently the Federation then holds that against the Empire, but it happened sort of about a millennia previously from the date of this time. They say this is about a century in the game's lore before Elite Dangerous. So you can understand it's a bit different. But yeah. It's all good though. It's all good. Ooh yeah. Right, okay. I think, yeah, we've had a cool time this evening. I think I have to wrap up the stream in the next sort of 5 or so minutes. But I do thank everyone who's been in the chat today. Thank you everyone who's contributed, anyone who's followed, any sort of bits, any subscriptions that anyone has also sent. I thank you all. It all helps the channel and I'm grateful for every little bit of it. Thank you to everyone who's talked about Elite Lore, because I know a lot of you do know a lot about it and are big fans of the game going back to even before my time as well, actually. So some people even more OG than I am in that regard. So you always learn something new. But yeah, thanks everybody. And I intend to do some more retro game streams in the near future. Some Elite, some not. And also I'll maybe covering some space launches. There's some the ones of Soyuz and also Crew Dragon in the near future, which depending on the time of day and night, I may end up covering. But I'll let you all know via Twitter and the usual Discord channels. And thank you for anyone who's joined the Discord. My own Discord, that is, not any of the other ones I'm in. But yeah, thank you for everyone. I'm always grateful to you all, and have a good evening, have a good day, good morning, wherever you may be in the world. And fly safe, fly dangerous, and whatever way you might. I know Phoenix. I don't want to copy exactly what you guys say, but I'll come up with my own catchphrase in time. Have a good one, everyone.